Boeing announces a major shutdown of several U.S. facilities this week, citing cost pressures and global trade risks. Markets react, but the bigger story may lie beyond Wall Street.
Imagine this. You've worked at the same company for nearly 3 decades. You've missed birthdays, holidays, and family dinners just to put food on the table. You took pride in your job, not just because it paid the bills, but because it meant something. Then one ordinary morning, you show up to work and the gates are locked. There's no warning, just a note. This plant is shutting down, effective immediately. That's not fiction. That's real. And it's happening all across America. Just days ago, Boeing announced it's shutting down multiple U.S. plants, a move that could eliminate thousands of American jobs. Why? Because of Trump's trade policies. Tariffs that were supposed to protect American workers are now pushing companies like Boeing to leave the country. Let that sink in. One of America's most iconic aerospace giants, Boeing, is pulling out of the very country that built it. This isn't just about numbers. It's not about stock charts. It's about people. It's about men and women like John, 57 years old, who spent his life building aircraft with his bare hands. And now, he's too old to start over, too young to retire, and too loyal to believe this could happen to him. This is personal. This is emotional. This is American. And if Boeing can leave, who's next? Ford? GM? Maybe your job. In today's video, we're going to break down how Trump's trade war backfired, what it's really doing to American jobs, and most importantly, what we can do to stop the bleeding. Because this isn't just a story about Boeing, it's a story about us, about the soul of American manufacturing, and whether there's still something left to save. So, if you've ever felt disposable, if your town has ever been gutted by layoffs, or if you just care about the future of honest work in this country, hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe, because the more voices we have, the harder this story will be to ignore. All right, let's get into it. Let's be clear. Boeing leaving the United States didn't just happen overnight. It didn't happen because of a single headline, or even one president. So what really pushed Boeing over the edge? It wasn't just tariffs. It was years of economic warning signs that no one wanted to deal with. And Trump's trade policies, they didn't fix the problem. They lit the fuse. For decades, American manufacturing has been bleeding slowly, offshoring, outsourcing, automation replacing people. But Trump's tariffs, especially on steel and aluminum, were supposed to be the game changer. They were sold to us as the way to bring jobs back. But what did they really do? They made everything more expensive, not just for foreign companies, but for our own. And for a company like Boeing, with a supply chain that stretches across 70 countries, that's a death sentence. Let me break it down. Small suppliers in places like Ohio and Kansas suddenly had to pay more for materials. What do? They either raise their prices and lose contracts, or eat the cost and go bankrupt. It's not a choice, it's a collapse. And here's the part that hits hard. Even companies loyal to the American workforce are saying, we just can't afford to stay here anymore. Let that sink in. We can't afford America anymore? When did that become normal? Boeing's exit isn't just about balance sheets or board meetings. It's a warning sign, a red siren blaring from the heart of American manufacturing. And the scariest part? If we don't fix the system, not just the tariffs, not just the politics, more giants will follow. Ford, GM, Lockheed, you name it. We'll wake up one day and realize we're not a manufacturing nation anymore. We're just a brand, stamped on boxes made somewhere else. So the question isn't just, why did Boeing leave? The question is, What the hell did we let happen to make leaving the best option? We're just getting started. Because if you thought that was bad, wait until you see what happens to the people they leave behind. Let's talk about the human cost. Next. You want to understand the real cost of Boeing shutting down its US plants? Forget the balance sheets. Forget the press releases. Let me tell you about John. John is 51 years old. He's worked at Boeing for 28 years. He's built parts for fighter jets and commercial airliners with his bare hands. He showed up every morning, never missed a shift, never asked for much. But now, no job, no pension, no options. He's too young to retire, too old to start over, and too loyal to ever imagine Boeing would walk away from people like him. But they did. And John isn't alone. When Boeing shuts down a plant, it doesn't just hit the workers. It rips the heart out of entire communities. Towns like Wichita, Kansas, or Everett, Washington, places built around aerospace, are starting to collapse. The diner where workers used to eat lunch? Empty. The auto shop? Closed. The school down the road? Losing funding. This isn't just about losing jobs. It's about losing identity. For generations, these towns believed in the American dream, the idea that hard work meant security. Now, that dream is gone. And if we don't act fast, we're facing more than just economic fallout. We're staring down a full-blown mental health crisis, anxiety, depression, suicide rates climbing, young people leaving their hometowns because there's nothing left to stay for, broken towns, broken families, broken futures. And let's be honest, when we talk about Trump's trade policies, we can't just talk about tariffs and strategy. We need to talk about the real people paying the price. Because to them, it's not a policy debate. It's their kids, their homes, their last paycheck. So before anyone defends another America First policy, they should ask themselves, which America are you putting first? Because from where John is standing, it sure doesn't feel like his America is being protected. And here's what makes this story even harder to swallow. While Americans are losing jobs, the rest of the world is lining up to take them. Let's talk about who's cashing in while we're bleeding out. Next. Or global winners. Who gain when America loses? While American workers are packing up their lockers, other countries are rolling out the red carpet. That's right, Boeing's exit from the US isn't happening in a vacuum. The rest of the world saw it coming, and they were ready. Let's start with China. While we argue over tariffs and politics, China is quietly pumping billions into its own aerospace industry. They're not just trying to compete with Boeing. They're trying to replace it. New state-owned aircraft manufacturers, massive government subsidies, entire cities being built just for aviation. And guess what? As America cuts jobs, China's creating them. Now let's talk about Airbus. Based in Europe, Airbus is the biggest competitor Boeing has, and thanks to Trump's trade war, Airbus just got a massive leg up. When the US slapped tariffs on foreign metals, it backfired. The European Union hit back, targeting US-made planes. That made Boeing more expensive and Airbus more attractive. And now, Airbus is expanding in France, Germany, even Spain, while towns in Kansas and Washington lay off workers. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, countries like the UAE and Saudi Arabia are offering Boeing tax breaks, free land, and dirt-cheap labor to move production there. They're not begging, they're bidding, fighting to become the new hub for global aviation. So while we're over here debating whether tariffs are patriotic, the world is taking our factories, our jobs, our place in the global economy. It's not just about Boeing. It's not even just about airplanes. This is a pattern. We make the rules harder. They make the deals sweeter. And guess what? Companies follow the money. Always have. Always will. So when people say, "Why did Boeing leave?" maybe we should ask a different question. Why are other countries doing a better job taking care of American companies than America is? Because it's happening. Right now. And if we keep looking the other way, it won't stop with Boeing. It won't stop with manufacturing. It won't stop until the only thing we export is nostalgia. But here's the good news. We don't have to sit back and watch it all disappear. There are solutions. We just need the courage to do them. Let's talk about what we can do to turn this around. Next. Here's the truth. We can't rewind the clock. We can't undo the Boeing shutdowns or erase the pain already caused by Trump's trade policies. But we can do something before the next factory goes dark. We can choose to fight smarter. First, let's talk about retraining. Yeah, I know. You've heard this before. But the problem isn't the idea. It's the execution. Too many retraining programs promise a bright future and deliver a PowerPoint and a pat on the back. That doesn't cut it anymore. We need a new model. Hands-on, fast-track, industry-connected. Imagine this. Instead of laying people off and tossing them aside, we funnel them into specialized programs, backed by real manufacturers, training them in automation, aerospace systems, advanced materials. Not just college kids, veteran workers, people like John. You want a Made in America comeback? Then build the workforce of the future right here, with the people who already gave us their best years. Second, incentives. Right now, we're throwing tax breaks at corporations with no strings attached. Guess what? They take the money and run. That ends now. Incentives need to be performance-based. You get the tax break? Then you keep the factory here. You train local workers. You pay a living wage. If not, you lose the benefits. Simple as that. You want to call it capitalism? Fine. Let's make it responsible capitalism. Third, it's time to rebuild what we've lost. Local manufacturing ecosystems. Not just one giant plant in the middle of nowhere. We're talking regional innovation hubs. Clusters of small to medium suppliers, research labs, vocational schools, logistics networks, all working together. You want Boeing to stay? Then make it easier, faster, and cheaper to build planes here than anywhere else. It's not about closing off from the world. It's about giving America a fighting chance. Because when Trump's trade war backfired, it exposed just how vulnerable we really were. Now's the time to turn that pain into a plan. Not everyone in Washington will like it. Not every CEO will support it. But if we keep doing nothing, there will be nothing left to defend. So the next time someone tells you it's too late, ask them this. Is it too late to fight for our families? Too late to protect our towns? Too late to save what's left of the American dream? Because if there's still a chance, even a small one, then it's not too late. And that leads us to the final question. What kind of country do we want to be? And what will it take to get there? Let's finish this. So, what did we really see today? This wasn't just a story about Boeing. It wasn't just a reaction to Trump's trade policies or a debate about tariffs. This was a mirror held up to the face of a nation. We saw what happens when American manufacturing is pushed to the edge. We saw what's left behind when factories go dark. Not just empty buildings, but empty hope. We heard from people like John, workers who gave their lives to a company only to be told they're too expensive, too old, too American to keep. We followed the money trail, straight out of Wichita, straight into Shanghai and Toulouse. And we laid out a roadmap. Real solutions, not slogans. Retraining, accountability, local revival. Because here's the truth. The American dream doesn't die in Washington. It dies in silence. When we stop fighting for it. When we scroll past the headlines and say, "That's too bad," and move on. But you're still here, which means you still care. And that matters. It means maybe there's still time. Maybe it's not too late. Not if we speak up. Not if we demand better. Not if we stop treating workers like numbers and start treating them like the backbone of this country they've always been. So here's what I ask of you. If this video spoke to you, like it. If you know someone who's lived this story, share it. If you don't want this to be just another news cycle, comment below. And if you want more honest, human-centered conversations about what's really happening to working people in this country, subscribe, because the truth needs a louder voice. We can't fix the system overnight, but together we can make damn sure it hears us. And that's how the comeback begins.